Hello and welcome to Morning Brew on Labour Social. It is Friday the 6th of October 2023. I'm Graham Hughes and last night, let me tell you about last night. The Rutherglen by-election happened in Scotland and it was pretty devastating for the SNP, and this is one of the reasons why we've seen the SNP leader in the House of Commons, Stephen Flynn, really go after Labour in Prime Minister's questions as much as he's going out after the Tories. In fact, you might argue that the fact is the biggest threat to the SNP's dominance of MPs in Scotland is Labour. The Lib Dems and the Conservatives both lost their deposits last night. That's amazing. So if you don't secure 5% of the votes, you lose your deposit. And the Tory candidate only just got over 1,000 votes, meaning they only got something like 3% of the vote. Absolute collapse. That's down from 15% in the last election, in the general election of 2019. So the question is, can Labour replicate these results across Scotland and, arguably more importantly, across the country? And this is why I felt it was so disingenuous for Rishi Sunak to be saying that people don't want a general election. And I said this earlier in the week, I'm going to say it again. If the ruling party, the Conservative Party in the UK, or the SNP in Scotland, were 20 points ahead in the polls, I can see the argument for delaying an election, because that would seem to me that people are very happy with what the government are doing. They're very happy with the decisions that the government have taken. The Tories are 20 points behind in the polls across the board, and now this candidate in Scotland has managed to secure twice as many votes as their nearest rival in the SNP. This is seismic, and hopefully, look, I'm old enough to. Although someone was very flattering and said to me the other day in the comments, "You're probably not old enough to remember the 1992 election." I am, believe me, I am. And yes, that was when Labour were prancing about like they had just won the election at the conference before the election, and then they lost the subsequent election under Neil Kinnock. We don't want to see that happening again. And from my experience with talking to people in Labour and Labour MPs at the moment, they are all very much keeping their powder dry. I mean, why suggest something like raising the age of buying cigarettes every year until people can't buy them anymore? Because the Tories will just rob your idea. Although, arguably, we did rob it from New Zealand, who came up with it first. But that's not the point. And the other thing is they're trying to keep cool. They are very much trying to keep level-headed. Let's go on. Let's keep doing it. And just to the people who we sometimes get in the chat and in the comments and stuff, because we do read them, saying, Labour's 20 points ahead in the polls. Now is the time to be bold. If I just go over to the newspapers today, I just want to show you, this is before the results came in, but we've got The Guardian with an absolutely terrifying cover here, out of control. Scientists stunned by planet record September heat. Look at that chart. That last bar is September 2023. That's terrifying. But anyway, that's not what I want to focus on, although that is terrifying. Starmer must be bold, urges team from 1997 win. I disagree. I completely and utterly, can I just say this? I really disagree, and maybe you can tell me in the chat why I'm wrong, but when you're 20 points ahead in the polls, imagine it's a race, okay? Don't start dancing around on the last lap. Don't do something unusual. Don't do something different and unique, and don't try something new. You're ahead. You are miles ahead. But if you trip over, you can still lose. And this is the point that I'd like to make this morning, is that it's looking good for Labour. It really is. And we don't want to jinx it. We don't, because we need the Tories out. We definitely need the Tories out. I can't stress this enough. After that Tory party conference in which we had Suella Braverman being racist and saying people need to be more racists. And I'm like, what? What did you say? People need to say, do more racism and not be afraid of being called a racist. And I'm like, I think people should be afraid of being called a racist. I think that racist should be a slur. That's why people say, I'm not a racist, but, and then say something racist. At least they know the word racist is a bad thing. And she's like, no, we need to rehabilitate the image of the word racist. In the same way that someone in the Tory party shop at the conference was trying to sell Tory scum t-shirts or caps or sunglasses or something. We're trying to reclaim the word scum. And I'm like, really? Really? I mean, I understand, certain groups in society reclaiming words that are kind of, used as slurs, but those words aren't necessarily in themselves a terrible, terrible thing. Like, I mean, the description of the word, scum is a bad thing. No one wants scum. It's like, oh, I've got a cup of tea. It's got scum on the surface. Oh, that's great, that. You don't want, it's something that, queer was used as a slur for gay people for many years, and they reclaimed it quite successfully. But being queer doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. It means like a bit strange, and that's fine. It's not yeah. Anyway, but yeah, then you had Penny Mordaunt talking about standing up and fighting. She seemed to be on a glitch. when in a sci-fi movie or something, a robot gets stuck in a loop or something. Westworld, no flash photography. It's just like stand up and fight, and then people stand up and fight, and then other people stand up and fight, and then countries stand up and fight. I'm like, yeah, countries standing up and fighting. That how well did that turn out in World War II or World War One? Oh my God! And then we have Rishi Sunak doing one of the most obnoxious speeches that's ever been. Oh God, that's saying a lot, isn't it? I think whereas Truss's speech was dreadful, and the speech by Theresa May in 2017 was certainly dysfunctional. So when she got given a P45 and she had a cough, and oh my God, it was awful. And the letters fell off behind her. She had letters, so the words fell off. Oh man, it was funny. Anyway, but this one, I mean, this speech was particularly obnoxious by Sunak because it was just burning the place on the way out. I've referred a few times to Portugal on the way out of Angola and Mozambique, famously like trashing the place on the way out and burning ships and pouring concrete down wells, and it feels a bit like that. And now it's been reported in the news that Labour are not going to try and revive HS2. And, this is annoying. Right, we'll go back to the papers for a minute. And so thank you very much to Ian2 for the super chat. I voted for Starmer because I wanted someone who knows how to plan. It would be stupid of me to tell him how to run his campaign. That's for me. Well, yeah. And whereas, me and Phil and Tan and Aid and all our friends bitch endlessly about Labour's comms, which are not great, but they're doing what needs to be done. At the end of the day, especially when it comes to social media, they could do a lot better, but it doesn't really matter as much. It is a little bit tinkering around the edges. But here's what the kind of shit that the Labour Party are going to have to put up with. We'll go to the Daily Telegraph here in the papers. In the middle of the screen, we've got Starmer will not bring HS2 to life, and I know the letters, the writing's probably quite small on the byline there, but underneath it says Manifesto commitment broken as Labour leader rules out work on second phase. So here's the problem here. There is no manifesto. There's no manifesto to put to the testo. They haven't written one yet. It might be, I can't read it because it's too small, but it might be referring to the 2019 manifesto, which that was a different manifesto for a different government with a different leader in a different time, before COVID, before the mini budget, before Brexit actually happened. All those things, right, didn't actually happen until after that election. So things have changed. And if this is true, and it's in the Telegraph, so who knows, if this is true, you are looking at a situation where Starmer has looked at the finances and gone, we won't have the money to do this. If I was Starmer, I'd say, look, we're just going to put it on hold for now, because we will have to come back to it. We'll have to circle back to it. And the more I read about it, the more I kind of get agitated that, first of all, HS2 wasn't better planned in the first place, and I think that there's got to be some responsibility taken by the Tory government for the shoddy way that it was organised, carried out compulsory purchases, the route that they decided to take. Labour didn't decide to take that route; they suggested that route, but it was the Tories who, in December 2010, when they were in power, who chose where the route went. And I think they should have thought about it a little bit more. But at the same time, you've got to think about how different Britain was in 2010. In 2010, we were looking forward to having the Olympics in 2012. We felt like we were on top of the world. We had the most powerful passport in the world in 2010. I know, because I used it. And I used several, actually. The economy was recovering from the credit crunch. Really recovering really, really well from the credit crunch. And it looked like at that time, Crossrail was taking place, and that was going to, open up London in some way, because it wasn't open before, apparently. And it seemed at that time that we could have these bold ambitions, that we could actually build a high-speed rail link from north to south, allowing people in Manchester to get to London in an hour. So you could live in Manchester and commute to London, especially now, because people only work in the office a couple of days a week usually now, but a lot of people work from home. And this is something that it felt achievable, and I think it's a damning indictment of the state of Britain right now, that we've had to dial it back, we've had to sack it off. Second leg, we're not going to do that. And also, just to go back to the papers for a minute, I know I'm supposed to be talking about the Labour the Labour win last night, but obviously the papers came out before that happened. Happened at 2:00 in the morning. Over here we have new HS2 plan is in doubt. 24 hours after Sunak's speech, and what this is about in the newspaper is the fact that he promised it would go to Euston. It probably is going to end in Old Oak Common. And do you know there was a £300 million contract given to a company, Contractors, for that second extension, for part of it anyway, just a couple of weeks before his announcement? £300 million. Build a hospital with that. Build a hospital with that money. And they gave it to a contractor for a thing that's now not going to happen. I don't know if they're going to recoup the money. I mean, the money was allocated. If it's been actually handed over, I just don't see a way of them doing it. The government haven't held up their end of the bargain. I don't see that the contractors have necessarily done anything wrong, except overcharge for everything. And HS2 should be hung like an albatross around the neck of the Tory party, just to say, look, they can't do anything, they can't achieve anything. Under Labour, we had schools built, we had houses built, we had the Olympic Stadium, we had the Millennium Stadium built, Millennium Dome. We had the Millennium Dome built under Labour. I'm not a massive fan of it, but at least it got built. And we built towards the Olympics, which the Tories took the credit for, but they had nothing to do with it. It was Labour. It was the Labour government that went for it under a Labour mayor of London, and Labour Party in power, and allocating the funds that were necessary for the 2012, the incredibly successful 2012 London Olympics to happen 11 years ago now. God, it feels like a lifetime ago, but it just shows how different life is now. Post-austerity, post-Brexit, post-COVID, post-kamikaze mini-budget. The Tories have just done an absolute number on this country. And I think that the results from this election, it wasn't close. It wasn't close. It wasn't even nearly close. The Labour candidate got twice as many votes as the SNP candidate. I think that's all the stat you need to know. The SNP had their chance and they've blown it. They have absolutely blown it by infighting. I don't know what the ins and outs are of the actual case that's been brought against Nicola Sturgeon and others, but I just get the impression that they had one goal and they were frustrated in achieving that one goal and they got distracted. I don't know what happened there, but whereas a few years ago, especially during the Brexit wars, I would be saying, Scotland's definitely going to go for independence in the next few years. I think that's going to be dialed back now, especially as Labour's pitch, the Scottish Labour's pitch, is going to be for more devolution, and perhaps even moving towards something like a federal model, which would be fantastic. I think that would be fun, and I wouldn't just want it to be England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. I'd also want there to be regions of the UK, regions of England, having their own representation. And part of the Labour plan at the moment is to get rid of the House of Lords. And then what do you replace it with? Well, something akin to the House of Britain, in which you have representatives from every major region of Britain. So no one has, overall control, and make it so that, look, if two parts of the country want to do something and two parts don't, like, so if England and Wales want to do something, but Scotland and Northern Ireland don't, it doesn't get done. That's it. You need at least three of the home nations on board, or you don't get it. And also, you'd have that extra representation for places like up in the north, where we feel like we are being ignored by Westminster for obvious reasons, especially now that HS2 has been canned. After spending all that money and all that time and all that effort, it's really embarrassing. You do know that in 2008, China didn't have like any HS2, any high-speed rail. They didn't have HS2 either, but they didn't have any high-speed rail. And now it's got thousands of miles of high-speed rail all over the country, crisscrossing the country. And then you look at Spain, nearer home. They didn't have any high-speed rail just 20 years ago. Now they've got loads, absolutely loads. It's fantastic. It's absolutely brilliant. I mean, the line between Barcelona and Madrid is incredible. And then Madrid train station, it's a lovely station. And then inside they've got like a park inside it, so it's like it works like a greenhouse with like plants in there. It's just really lovely. I mean, I get quite romanticize about trains because they are the most joyful form of transport that humans have ever created. I hate driving. I hate sitting in traffic jams. I hate sitting at stoplights. I hate the stress of driving. I hate the fact that everyone else on the road's a maniac, of course. I hate the fact that I have to drive past little squishy pedestrians, and I slow down because I always worry that someone's just going to jump on my bonnet for no reason, but other people don't. They go, oh well, if you jump on my bonnet, it's their lookout. And I'm like, it's not the way to see the world. I hate flying. I mean, actually being up in the air is quite, well, taking off and landing, that's quite fun, but being up in the air is quite boring. But I hate airports. Airports are horrible places, horrible soulless places. The just a giant 90s Radiohead video. Not that I hate Radiohead, but I quite like them. But just that kind of like soullessness of a place, and it's kind of weird and unsettling, and it's not comfortable. It's not nice in any way, shape, or form. And obviously, I've travelled around the world on a lot of coaches and Greyhound buses in America, and the National Express are here, absolutely bloody garbage. And they're filthy, they turn up late, the drivers are just horrible to the passengers a lot of the time. Treat them with no respect whatsoever. So that's not very pleasant. So trains, especially when you get to go to an old-fashioned train station like here in Durham, which is one of the classic train stations from back in the day, and then you go to London or Liverpool, to one of the beautiful train stations there, like King's Cross, or not Euston, or going to Lime Street Station. It's just this magnificent edifice, and it's just, I don't know, I just find it really satisfying. And the fact that we can't build high-speed rail is it's just beyond embarrassing, isn't it? Isn't it? It's just one more thing to be embarrassed at a country about. Pulling out the EU, pulling out of our commitments to net zero, pulling out of our commitments to the rest of the world, and well, just, I don't want to say welching on our deal, because that's kind of like Walesist, isn't it? What's the word for it? Not living up to our side of the deal. I'm gonna get shouted at by all my Welsh viewers. Ryan Brown, thank you for the super chat. The UK are going so backwards, you might see coal trains again under the Tories. It wouldn't surprise me. They only got rid of the Pacers apparently this year. Someone said in the chat the other day, we only got rid of the Pacers this year. Is that right? I don't mind flying, but I prefer trains. They're just trains are just nicer. They're just nicer. There's just a nice way of getting around. And I've been on trains in Tunisia. I've been on trains in Iran, in India, in Australia. In Australia on Christmas Day, all the trains are free. All the trains are free on Christmas Day. How wonderful is that? In France, if they're on strike, the trains still run, but they're free. How cool is that? I've taken the train from Tibet to from Lhasa in Tibet all the way to Beijing, 2-day journey, and the options were they were bed, which was X amount, and then there was which is like a little fold down bed thing, and then there was what was the other option? It was soft seat, and then for about half the price of a soft seat, there was a hard seat, and I was just kind of assuming that it might be just like a bad translation, because when it said hard seat, I thought, well, it's going to be like a seat that you have on a normal like an intercity train, maybe maybe not an intercity train, but maybe like a commuter train that actually has like a little bit of foam, a little bit of cloth, a little bit of foam on the seats. Yeah, no, it was like hard plastic for 2 days sitting on the train. But it was quite fun. I made some friends. Didn't speak any English, and I didn't speak any Chinese, and we just played cards because the international language of playing cards. Yeah, it was that kind of experience. It's great. You get to meet people. You get to have a chat and find out what people are doing. One of my favorite experiences of traveling ever. I went interrailing. I've been interrailing around Europe. Obviously, that's a given for me. But I've been interrailing around India. And I spent a month or so just like darting around India, and I had like this all India pass, which was like really complex and had all these different printouts on. I had to be at certain places at certain times, and I planned all my route out. And I'd arrive in a city or a town, and then I'll in the morning at like 6 a.m. on the overnight train, and then I'll go to whatever the sites were, whatever. Go and see the fort, go and see the palace, go and see the temples, and then in the evening at like 7 o'clock, I'll get on another night train and go to the next place. And I did that for like a month. It was brilliant. It was so cool. Met so many cool people. So I'm sorry, I'm going to stop waxing lyrical about trains now. But I did say at the time that they probably should sack off the bit from Birmingham to Manchester and spend the money making another line that is actually for slow trains because it would cost less. But I don't think I had quite factored in how much money had already been spent on that part of the line with compulsory purchases and things. I was sort of under the impression that it was kind of like, between London and Birmingham, that bit was done, and the bit between Birmingham and Manchester had hardly started. But that's not the case. They'd done a lot of work, and they'd already bought all of the land. There's a guy whose farm was bisected down the middle by HS2, and they've done stuff to the land to harden it up, and he says we're not going to be able to farm on it anymore, even if I buy it back. People's lives ruined. But there you go. I think we must be the Daily Express minority today. Well, yeah, talking about the shitty papers. Hang on, where's this? The Daily Express here. I mean, how awful is this? Look, right behind you, Suella. Brits back quitting Euro court. Voters have given their clearest signal that Britain must ditch Europe's human rights treaty if Rwanda flights continue to be blocked. This is Rwanda, where just a few years ago, dozens of refugees were shot dead by security forces for protesting that they didn't have enough food. And we want to send refugees to this place. And in order to do that, Suella Braverman, who I guess is barely human because she doesn't seem to want human rights, say the same thing about Dominic Raab and the rest of these really horrible Tories. She doesn't want us to have rights. She wants to pull out of the European Convention of Human Rights, and therefore the European Court of Human Rights. And in that we would join Belarus and Russia. And no one else. I mean, it is just sickening that a party that is 20 points behind in the polls, that has its client media so far up its arse it can see the future, pumping this shit out and saying, oh yeah, we love the idea of leaving the European Human Rights Convention. No, we don't. No, we absolutely don't. And we saw that last night because Labour won by a 20% swing against the SNP. More importantly, the Conservative lost their deposit. That's how popular the Conservatives are. In poll after poll, we see that tiny numbers of young people are going to vote Conservative in the next election. We're talking 2%. 2% of people who say they're going to vote in the next election between the ages of 18 and 24 are saying they're going to vote Conservative. Past was yours, but the future's mine. £120 a month for a month's travel. That's from Gary Arnold. That sounds boss. I'm reading that HS2 had royal assent, so Sunak needs Parliament to approve. Or is this Sunak acting as emperor? Oh, that's probably true. I mean, the way Sunak announced this was just absolutely disgraceful. He didn't announce it to Parliament. He didn't announce this to Parliament. I mean, one of the things that gets up Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House, his nose is when things are announced in the newspapers or to the newspapers before being announced in Parliament. And this is the biggest infrastructure project of our generation. And yeah, he announced it at his party conference rather than to Parliament. Didn't get Parliament a vote on it or nothing. Just, ruling by decree for a project worth billions. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I would like them all thrown in jail. I really would. All the Tories, every single one of them. Every single elected Tory should be thrown in jail. We should have some kind of like Nuremberg trials type affair where they're all sort of, we hold judgment over them. Johnny Copperhead, are you like me? Happy to know none of us want a general election. I love Rishi speaking for me. Thank you very much for the super chat, Johnny. Yeah, that's what he said. That's what he said in an interview this week. He said that people don't want a general election. I'm like, how do you know? You don't know any people. You just know other rich people. That's it. They're not really people. They're like weirdos. Politics wonks and braying arseholes from Winchester. That's all you know. The polls very much indicate that people want a general election. People want to change. And, it seemed maddening. I did a video about this, obviously. But, the fact that, Rishi Sunak standing up there at the Tory party conference going, we all want change. And I'm like, and everyone's like, yeah, change. And he's like, do you know who should bring that change? I'm like, who? Who should bring that change? We should. The party that's been in charge for the last 13 years. I'm like, how does that work? You're the same people. Do you know what I mean? Like, people want a change of government, so let's keep the same government. It's very important that we do that. Blanket 20 miles an hour. It's not blanket. Yeah, exactly. It's bullshit. They just lie. All the newspapers lie on behalf of the politicians in the Tory party, and the politicians in the Tory party just lie all the time. It's like a endless cycle of lies, fibs, mistruths, balderdash, bullshit. Totally agree. As citizens, can we bring them to court? They are criminals and should be in jail. All of them, says Simon. I couldn't agree more, my friend. Rishi is bringing change. Change for the worse, says Sarah. Very good point, Sarah. Graham, I watched your video about trans. I love to be your ginger trans. Okay. Thanks very much, David, for watching that. That was an important video to make. I was really angry when I made that. I still am. For the dog whistle bullshit, the dog whistle transphobia, homophobia, ableism, that he said in that speech was just absolutely disgusting. And I keep saying this, but you always think, this has got to be the lowest bit for the Tories. They can't possibly sink any lower than this because they'll burn up in the centre of the earth. But no, somehow they are still sinking. One Angry Pagan, thank you very much for the super chat. Would you like to see more on housing policy from Labour at the conference, though? That and the decentralised power of Londinium out to the regions? Yes. Absolutely, mate. I mean, that is 100% what we need. We've had 20 years of luxury student flats. Not one of us, not one person watching this who lives in the UK has not driven past or been driven past or gone past or walked past a edifice that has been built in the last few years that isn't for student luxury accommodation. And it's like, really? That's what we need right now? No. We need houses for families to live in. And people are choosing not to have children now because they have the money. They can't afford to have kids. That's the society the Tories have built. And they can't. And then they go, well, if we had kids, where are we going to live? We can barely fit in this one-bedroom bedsit that we're paying £1,200 a month freaking rent for as is. How are we supposed to... Well, are we going to find some three-bedroom bloody house in London on our wages? We only work... we work 3 jobs as it is. How are we going to have time to look after... And people like Rishi Sunak don't get this because they're so rich. They were born rich. They went to school. You know, when you're a kid, nearly all your friends that you have when you're a kid go to school with you, right? That's just normal. So all of his friends went to Winchester. All of his friends went to one of the most elite public schools in the country, where it was like £30,000 a year for school fees. I mean, that is just mind-blowing to think that someone coming from that background is going to be able to, understand. I mean, maybe they could empathize if they had that, but no, these Tories don't have empathy, so forget that. But being able to understand the plight of people who desperately, in their 30s, they want children, they want to have kids, they want someone to bring up, to play with, to laugh with, to look after them when they're feeling ill, when they're older, whatever. And that opportunity has been taken away from them by the Tories. I feel like I'm one of those people. I honestly do. I don't want to overshare with you, but yeah, what can I say? Fucking Tories, hate them. George Dawes, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. Tory client press are a bigger problem as the Tories. Yeah. Patrick H, yeah. As James O'Brien says, born 3-0 up and think they've scored a hat-trick. And Ned said, this is one reason we need to abolish private schools. I couldn't agree more. If you want nearly 700 reasons to abolish private schools, go to privateschoolmafia.com. It's a growing list. It's an organic list that grows every day of people in the public eye who went to public school. And it's immense. It is everyone you see on TV. Every day you'll wake up and someone will do something, be in the news, be on Twitter, be on, on the telly, in the newspapers, on the website, someone being a dick, and I'll see if they went to private school. 99 times out of 100, they went to private school. Yeah. Because those people, they can't just be a quiet dick. They have to be a dick, on stage. Ta-da! Jazz hands. A jazz hand dick. Anyway, remember Sunak asking a homeless man what business he's in? He doesn't understand empathy. Yeah, Nick, that is such a great point. And it goes back to his upbringing. It goes back to... And in a way, you could say, well, it's not his fault because he didn't ask to go to a private school. He just was put there by his parents. But at the same time, there are ways of spending time with people who may not be in your social class. He represents Richmond in Yorkshire, and Yorkshire's got some very deprived areas that he could visit, but he doesn't. Maybe he just goes around the North Yorks moors or something, or the Pennines or whatever. I mean, it doesn't to a grouse shooting farm. What are these things? Like they have these places where the rich people go and shoot grouse, and the moorlands get drained, so that the grouse come out and it destroys the land. The peat bogs are getting destroyed, so they can go out and there's these landowners who since the age of William the Conqueror and these vast swathes of land in the UK. And it's destroying our environment. And I'm just going to show you this again because I don't, happy nightmares, kids. That's the graph. That's the graph that you're going to show I was going to say kids, but I'm not now because, the Tories have been in charge for so long. People are thinking twice about it, but look at that. Just look at that chart just above my head. Look at that last point. That was September this year. Out of control. And Rishi Sunak is getting rid of green policies. He's got rid of HS2. He's got rid of, they've still got a ban of onshore wind farms. He said he was going to get rid of that, and then he didn't. He U-turned on it, of course. And he's given out all these licenses to drill 500 billion barrels worth of oil out of the North Sea and burn it, creating 200 billion tons of CO2. Okay, great. Thanks for that. Thank you, matey. That's good. Sunak thinks the British public are idiots, says he's not chasing headlines or the short-term gains, while his actions are doing exactly that. Thinks people will take him at face value. So wrong, says Joseph. Yeah. There was a clip that I saw, just to go back onto the oil thing, there was a clip that I saw about Thatcher. And someone said, one of the Tories said, oh, well, Thatcher was actually being environmental when she closed down the coal mines. She was thinking about the environment. No, she wasn't. She just wanted to smash the unions. And we continued to get coal, the same rate of coal that we had been digging out of our ground. We dug it out of the ground in Argentina or Australia. and it was just as filthy, just as bad for the environment, but it had to come halfway across the world on a cargo ship, which pumps out a lot of CO2. Believe me, a lot. We're talking Olympic-sized swimming pools of fuel, dirty fuel on these beasts. Yeah, they pump out a lot of noxious emissions, shall we say. Anyway, right, I'm going to head off now. Oh, I've gone over time. Thanks, Graham, says Victoria. Thank you, Victoria, for watching. British caste system is destructive here as it was in India. I couldn't agree more. One thing that I would change if I had a magic wand, I could change one thing about Britain. It's deference. The way that people hero worship the rich. Just stop it. The powerful, stop it. Monarchy, stop it. Just stop it. Just stop doing that thing. Because you give them your power, you know. You give them your power to say no. You give it up because what? They were born rich. That's really weird. You're born in a different social strata, and maybe if you're friends with them, maybe they'll help you out. Maybe they'll throw you a few crumbs. Never happens. Never happens. The richest people I know are also the tightest. You've been soon-knackered, says Captain. Thank you very much, Captain. Right, I'm going to be back at 1 o'clock with Phil Morehouse for the agenda, where we'll be talking more about the by-election in Rutherglen up in Scotland, and also about the Tory party conference this week. We will also be back for the Labour Social at 9 o'clock tonight, so please tune in to them. I'll be doing a moment of truth tomorrow, and then on Sunday I'll be heading off to the Labour Party conference. So I'm going to start doing videos from there. Hopefully I can get some kind of pass so my internet works well, because I know when I tried to do a video from the European Rejoin March, it didn't go very well. So yeah, we'll try and get that sorted. And before I go, I just want to brag just slightly, because I went to see Ash last night and I managed to get my ticket signed, and I'm so happy that I finally got this. I've been waiting, because I'll tell you a little story before I go. When I was 16 years old, I went to see Ash at the Lomax in Liverpool, and I was waiting for ages outside to get them to sign my ticket, and they didn't come out, and I had to go home because, you know, it was during the summer holidays, but, you know, it was a school night, and I had to get the last bus, so we had to run off and get the last bus, number 10, home. So I never got my ticket signed. So last night I finally got my Ash ticket signed from 1995. Yes. Good things come to those who wait. And we've been waiting 13 years to get rid of this Tory scum. I mean, it's going to take a few more months, I think. But May, we're looking at May for the general election. So, yeah, fingers crossed. Let's do this. See you at 1 o'clock. Until then, I'll say thanks very much for watching. Thanks very much for all the super chats and everything. You've been great. And I'll see you at 1 o'clock. And until then, hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.